Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Let me ask you this. Are you in a trap, a comparison trap, where you constantly compare your parenting to other parents or your children, your household, your cars, your everything to others? I, for many years, was stuck in a comparison trap where I constantly thought I just wasn't getting it right when I compared myself with others. And so many parents, and I'm sure you can relate, get stuck in these traps over and over. Either it's about how many activities your kids are in, or how beautiful your house is, or the neighborhood you live in, or the cities you took your children to travel to their last summer vacation. It goes on and on and on. It's almost as if we parents are constantly pitting ourselves against others in this endless competition. Well, if you are stuck in a comparison trap or ever have been, then you're going to get so much out of this episode because I'm going to be helping a few parents here to release the trap and set themselves free. Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking with a mother who is stuck in her own comparison trap with her ex. So many of us parents feel insecure when we compare ourselves to how other parents are doing it, when we compare our children to how other children are faring. I often call it a severe case of comparison-itis. And then when you add in, say, a co-parenting situation with an ex-partner, and if they're now married and they do things differently in their house, then we struggle even more with co-parenting issues and comparing one household to the other. Nothing like parenting to get us to our most insecure depths, is there? So I'm going to now be joined by Ashley, who is struggling with comparing herself to how her ex and his new partner raise their children. Welcome, Ashley. I'm so happy you're here. Tell us what you're struggling with right now.
Hi, I'm Ashley, and I'm so happy to be here. So I am recently divorced in the last several years. And my ex recently remarried within the last year, and my kids are 5 and 9. And so now, they have two households that look very different. And my concern is from their shoes, how this affects with our co-parenting, or, is it my insecurity? Is it affecting them?
Tell us a little bit more about the insecurity, like what's happening in that house that you feel is not happening in your house. So give us a picture about exactly what your children may be experiencing differently.
Well, just by nature, there's a household of two. So they have two parents. There are two children. I am outnumbered. I'm one person with two children. So there's sort of the parent to child time there. There's also this, juggling of schedules with another parent. You can swap things. There's more flow there. There's also two incomes in the other house. I have one income. And so things do look different. For example, they just went on a vacation to Hawaii, which is wonderful. And I want that for my children. So I was genuinely excited that they got that experience. I couldn't take them to Hawaii right now. That's not something that I can give them. So these are some of the differences between the two households right now.
Oh my goodness, I can so understand and relate. And this is so common. So many of us just feel insecure just on a day-to-day basis being mothers. And then when you add in all the factors that you've explained, I can only imagine how much more insecure we get. So let's first tackle the first issue. How do children feel when they are being co-parented in two different households, right? So here's the thing. It's never easy. The younger the child, the harder the transitions between two different parenting styles, two different homes. It's never easy. So having said that, there are things that we can do to make it harder or easier for our children, right? So the more the parents communicate, the more that they don't trash talk each other, the more that they can coordinate their efforts and show amicability, the more the children feel like this is actually a bonus. This is not a deficit, it's a bonus. So we have to begin as parents to look at divorce situations or two households as something in more abundance, with more bonus rewards than something as less. So it depends a lot on us parents. How do we look at our divorce situation? How do we look at this co-parenting situation? Because that will frame it for our children. And then the second issue you brought up, which is, I think, a deeper issue to do with you and most of us caregivers, especially single mothers, is how do I compare to the other house? How does my parenting compare? Do I feel as if I am equally good enough? Do my children feel as if what I'm giving them is good enough? And now you have this two-person house on the other side. They seem to be more well off and they have more resources. So of course it creates all this angst within us. Is that what you're feeling on a deeper level?
One thing that I have to my benefit is that I'm a creative person. So I'm really good at making something out of nothing, which I've done with my kids since they were very little. So we have a great time together. Like, we genuinely have fun.
Yes.
But these things do come up, and they, from their shoes, and this is what I'm projecting essentially, but from their shoes, I imagine that they're seeing their mother that's just kind of like, juggling all these different moving parts and like trying to keep everything rolling and everybody's needs met. And it's a different dynamic than it would be with a two-parent household.
Yes. So what's more important is not what they are experiencing, but what you are experiencing, right? So you are experiencing that you are all over the place. You are experiencing that you can't give expensive vacations, so it could be lacking. You are experiencing that you don't have enough time. You see, it's easy to project onto our children, which is what you're doing, but it's also easy to project that more is better, right? A two-person household is better than a one-person household. A wealthier household is better than a not so wealthy household. These are easy comparison traps for us to fall into. These are comparison traps. And if you aren't aware that these are pitfalls and traps that are being laid out, designed specifically for you to feel crummy, then you will keep repeating this pattern and falling into the trap. So let me show you how you can get out of these comparison traps and how you can reclaim your amazing position in your children's life as their one and only mother. So number one, you're feeling lesser than because you are the only one, right? You're the single parent. And you're presuming that two is better than one. And here's what I'm going to tell you to shatter this myth that two is better than one. One person's consciousness that is truly present, available, abundant, joyful, so secure, so empowered, that light bulb is as bright as a whole rainbow. It's like the light bulb saying, oh, I'm only one light bulb. But if that light bulb shines with the colors of joy, empowerment, security, abundance, present moment presence, full of presence, attunement, attention, that little light bulb that feels it's just, only got a little light left, a little wattage, can shine brighter than a rainbow. On the other hand, if you take 10 light bulbs, but they are unconscious, they are disempowering, they are not so present, not so attentive, not so creative like you say you are, then that 10 light bulb wattage is as good as if it was just a tiny speck of light. So it doesn't depend on the number. It depends on how brightly we shine with conscious energy, empowering energy. So you have control over your wattage of consciousness. Look at it that way. How high is my wattage of consciousness today? How am I shining forth in front of my children? How empowered and gleeful and joyful and radiant am I being today? You see, I always tell parents, it takes one person's consciousness to shift the family. We don't need 10 people, because 10 unconscious people is worse than one, and one conscious person's energy can transform the family. So you have to reclaim that power back.
I love this so much because I can like feel it in my whole body. I know it to be true.
Yes, it is true. You have so much power and you're giving up your power.
Yeah, with those comparisons.
With the comparison traps. The second thing I want to tell you, and all listeners out there need to pay attention. It has been shown through research that the greatest indicator of children's well-being is maternal well-being, the mother's energy, the mother's happiness, the mother's sense of worth. And I can relate to you because I too went through a divorce. And I too experienced this sort of comparison. Oh my goodness, she's going to love, that side more than me. And she's going to find that side more fun because my ex-husband is more fun and plays games and loves the things that she loves. And who am I? And I realized that not only was I falling into the comparison trap, I was dimming my light by giving my power to the fun side, to the other side. And I wasn't owning and celebrating what I was bringing to the table. And I'm here to tell you what a mother brings to the table is unmistakable. It is irreplaceable. And you aren't capitalizing on your bank, on your wealth, on your currency. You have so much going for you. All mothers do. But we give up our power because, we get triggered into this unworthiness.
I live in Colorado, so we have beautiful mountains everywhere. And I love being outside is one of my favorite things in life. And so I take the kids out a lot. We're out hiking and, playing in the river and stuff. And, nature has this amazing ability to bring us into the present.
Mm-hmm.
And some of my best memories with my children are so simple.
Exactly.
I feel it in me. I feel it it's just, we're all present. It's just indescribable.
Exactly. So don't get seduced by we're going to Hawaii or we're going to Mars or we're building a spaceship or we have diamonds, right? Don't get seduced by the external trinkets and embellishments and the jewelry of life. Your children need your indisputable attention and presence. That is what is going to make them feel like they had a connection with you. And we give up that power. You see, we think that who we are simply can't compare when you look at the mansions that other people have or the big ski trips they take to fancy ski slopes. But our children don't need any of that to thrive. What they need is a very present, empowered, joyful, and most of all, connected parent. And that is for free, right? We have that for free. You don't need fancy cars to give them that. You don't need fancy vacations to give them that. And I think most of us parents forget because the world makes us think that the more you do, the more our children will have. But that is so false. It's really the more you are and the more you be, that the more your children will have.
I love that. It's interesting. I was talking to a friend recently about this and these comparisons. And then as we were talking, I was thinking about it, I said, I grew up I had a wonderful childhood and my parents provided us plenty. We went on great trips. We did all the things, all the ski trips and all of this. And my favorite memories are not those, actually. It is like really sort of seemingly benign moments that I remember and like hold so close to my heart.
And so I want you to remember, what were the things that made you feel soothed, seen, understood, and validated? It was the presence of a very connected, attuned parent. So that can happen in a dingy hut, in a, third world poor country, or it can happen on the shores of a beautiful beach in Hawaii. The outside is not what makes the experience. It is the connection two people have within each other that makes the experience, right? You could put on an ocean sound in a bedroom in a tiny little apartment in Colorado and, soothingly tell your child a story, and they will remember that far more than surfing with a surfing teacher in Hawaii. So it's the atmosphere we create with our children in the most ordinary of moments. That's what they're going to transport into their adulthood.
I love that. You know, it's interesting too. When they got back from Hawaii, I was asking the kids what their favorite part of the trip was. And my 9-year-old daughter, I was kind of surprised to hear this, but after thinking about it, she said her favorite part of the trip was a friend that she made from California.
Exactly. It's always about connection. Our children are so simple, but we have complicated it in this modern world of parenting. The modern world of parenting has taken us so far away from the essential ingredients of a emotionally attuned childhood. We have just moved so far, filling it with so many trinkets and adornments and schedules and activities that actually disconnect us from our children. So the next time you're with your child and your child brings up the other house, and oh my goodness, they have an amusement park in their backyard, or they bought me the most fancy skateboard or fancy bicycle. I want you to feel the joy with your children, but don't allow it to take you into the comparison trap. And I want you to then remember that you, as a present mother, equal, if not outweigh, all the things that the other can buy. So it's not about the purchases, it's about your presence. That is the immeasurable, invaluable gift we give our children.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. It's also, we're all inundated so much, like with social media and all these things. And there is like this, it's even subconsciously we're comparing, I think. Like I was signing my kids up for summer camps, which is a whole other conversation. I know a lot of parents go through. It's just madness. And have your 5-year-old kayaking and it's like $1,000 a week. And like,
Exactly.
it takes a lot not to get
Yes.
a mindset of like, my 5-year-old can't kayak yet.
Exactly. So again, it's this pressure from the outside world to do. And have you done this? Have you done that? Have you tumbled down backwards? Have you skied from this slope? Have you visited this art museum? And we're getting lost in the external doing and the comparisons. But I'm here to tell you that children actually thrive best with simplicity in the ordinary, quiet moments of an attuned, connected caregiver. And the mother is the most essential ingredient here, and that's you. So don't forget that you have this irreplaceable role in your children's life, and capitalize on the fact that your presence is the greatest gift you can give your children.
I love that.
Don't forget now, okay? Don't fall into the trap.
Oh, yes. It's a daily practice, I think.
A daily practice. The traps are everywhere.
They really are. They really are.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sure as you were listening to Ashley's story, you too were reminded of so many moments in your life where you were triggered into a state of unworthiness, where you felt that someone was personally attacking you, or maybe your children were rejecting you. I hope you could relate to that story and realize that it's not the child or the external event that is really the trigger, but sometimes it is our own past wound that makes us walk right into that comparison trap and keeps us stuck there. Joining me next is a mother who's in the throes of her own comparison trap, and I will be showing her and you how we can be set free. Whenever we parent our children, it's so natural to compare how they are with us than how they are with our spouses, our partners, even our mothers or fathers. You know, we are always trying to see how our children react to others in comparison to us. This is a natural phenomenon, but many times that comparison leads us to feeling really bad about ourselves. And we struggle with those feelings of unworthiness and lack that we feel. We wonder, why are our children so easy with our mothers, for example, or our husbands or wives? Why aren't they the same with us? Well, joining me now is Zenara. Zenara is experiencing some of that comparison trap that we're talking about, and she's here to discuss her struggles. Welcome, Zenara. Tell us about your core struggle that you're having with your daughter. And I think it's your husband that you're comparing yourself to, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you for having me, Dr. Shefali. So, yes, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I love her deeply. And we have an okay relationship, but I have noticed that she does prefer her dad over me a lot. Me and her dad will get into it sometimes. And after an argument, she will just come to me and tell me how I'm being so mean to her dad and I should be nicer. And I feel like every time we get into an argument, she always just sees him in this light that where he can do no wrong. There was a time a couple of years ago, me and her dad got into an argument, and she covered a picture of me and her dad. She covered my face and left his face open. And I asked why, and she just said she couldn't believe how mean I was being. I do like that they're close and they have a good relationship, but I don't know. I think I'm just struggling with how like open she is with him and not so much with me. You know, like she'll go to him and just talk about her day, and I'm like, well, how was your day? She's like, it's fine. You know, so I think there's a little struggle there.
And you're feeling this sense of abandonment, right? Like she's so obviously going toward the other parent and kind of ignoring you, neglecting you. And your old, little girl self is being triggered. I know you mentioned to our producers that you never had a daddy in your life. So you're really, on one hand, so happy that she has that relationship. But I do think that early abandonment from your own father is being re-triggered here. And every time she, quote unquote, chooses her father, somewhere an old memory is being triggered of not being good enough, of being left by your own father, and those feelings of abandonment, which is so natural to feel in those moments.
Right. And I agree. And I've been following you for so long. And before, I never really understood what was going on. I would just get so upset. Like, I'm happy that she has a relationship with her dad, but then why is there like a disconnect with me? But then I realized it was a trigger, like you mentioned, of like the unhealed child in me, So it's just one thing that I'm working on, trying to be more of a conscious parent, right?
Yes. Yes. And it's so hard in the moment to realize how our old childhood wounds show up in the present moment, because in the present moment, it feels so real. But this is what I teach all parents. And for anyone listening right now who's ever experienced this sense of unworthiness or abandonment, I remember feeling it in my own parenting when my daughter would choose her father over me. I felt like a 3-year-old girl, feeling like I was not being picked by the popular girls in the school, right? Our abandonment issues are always under the surface, and our children are masters unknowingly to trigger them, right? They can just so quickly trigger those old wounds within us. So I'm glad you're becoming aware that in the moment, she's not meaning to trigger you, but because of your own abandonment issues, that's what ends up happening. You understand?
Yes.
So now what do we do about it, right? Now we're conscious, but what do we do about it? How can we move from a place of disempowerment and almost feeling like a victim? Like, hey, I do all this for my daughter. I'm the one making the food. I'm the one waking her up every morning. And she just runs to daddy and he gets all the good, fun parts of parenting her. And I get all the bad parts of parenting her. How can we move from that lack and comparison to a state of empowerment and to a state of liberation and freedom? Because you want to be freed of this constant comparison yourself, don't you?
Yes.
It feels like a burden, right? Every day to feel jealous is not a fun feeling, is it?
Right. No, it's not. So we got to find a way to move past that.
Right. Because then when you're jealous, I'm sure it shows up in your relationship with her. Do you think it does? And how do you think it shows up with her in the moment?
I think maybe it does, because then I act differently, like I feel like sometimes our relationship is forced. We're forced interactions, and it never goes smoothly.
Right, because now you're kind of rejected, right? So like a jilted lover in a way, or a jilted child, you have a little bit of a tantrumy defense going on because you're protecting your feelings. So you can just imagine unconsciously, you're now showing up with her with a little bit of an edge, like if you don't love me, then fine. I'm not going to, love you either. A little bit of a childish tantruming kind of defense that's going on with you. And guess what? She picks up on it. And now she feels rejected in her own way. So then she tells you, like you've told me before this interview began, that she then says mean things to you, right? And you're wondering, why are you being mean? Because she's picking up on your quote unquote jilted child, jilted lover energy. And she's seeing that you're being mean to her, but you're unconscious to it. So it's all happening at this unconscious level. And mother and daughter are both feeling rejected, but you're only aware of your rejection by her, you see? But in your own way, you are rejecting her too.
Yeah.
You just don't see it, right? Because you're in a competition. Only when you get out of the competition that you can truly be there for your daughter. You are stuck in this competition of, am I good enough? Am I as loving as your father? Do you love me as much? You're doing this silent battle within yourself, and it is showing up and blocking your connection with your daughter.
Yeah, I'm only seeing it from my point of view and not from hers. So I think now being aware of it moving forward, I can be, more conscious.
Yes, you're getting hurt and it's showing up in your relationship because you're creating a defense, a protection. Let me give you a very concrete moment in time in your history with your daughter that you could have changed the script so that next time you can change the script when it shows up. When your daughter covered your face, right, you felt really hurt. Wow, that is a moment of a rejection. I give it to you. But because of your own abandonment issues, it hurt you even more, right? She was literally erasing you from the picture. And that's how you must have felt your father did to you when he erased you from being in your life, right? So it was like that exact mirror replay of your childhood trauma. So in that moment, she covered your picture and she said, Mommy, you're so mean to my daddy. Now you felt really hurt. Your inner child was triggered and you probably in your own way retreated from her instead of leaning toward her. You see, when our children hurt us or trigger us unconsciously, and they bring up an old wound in us of us not being good enough, then in our own way, we reject them. So I'm pretty sure without you realizing, you kind of moved away from her instead of toward her. And if you were empowered, if you were coming from a place of, joy and abundance and worth, you would have leaned into her and said, oh, I'm sorry that you feel Mommy is being mean to Daddy. I'm sorry. Tell me how you feel that. How can Mommy help? And then she would have felt heard, attuned with, and understood. And she would have opened up to you, you see? Because all she was saying is, hey, I don't want my one little pet to fight with my other pet. She's just talking about two people she loves. But because of your wounds, you took it personally and you kind of moved away from her. And this is so common in parenting. You're not the only one who does this. We're all looking to our children to validate us. We're all looking for our children to heal us. But that's not what our children are here to do.
Yeah.
Do you see how in that moment, it was an opportunity to lean toward her, but you leaned away from her because you were hurt?
Yes. Yes. Now I see that.
Right? And there are many moments that your daughter is trying to tell you, hey, come toward me. Don't take this personally. Be more for me. I need you, Mommy. But she does it in a way that so triggers you that you don't hear her need, right? You're falling for this comparison trap that we all fall into. And this is your opportunity to be free.
Just makes more sense. It just has me thinking now on how moving forward, how I can better our relationship and how I can be there for her, and, make her more comfortable, come to me and not be so triggered and really just really trying to think of ways that I can heal my inner child. She's becoming her own and nurturing her and supporting her in who she is and not being so harsh. I think that's one thing that I need to learn and work on this time. So
Yeah, because you're
yeah.
you're in your own unconscious way punishing her for not loving you like you think she loves her father. But here's where we as parents need to step in our role and not come to our children with our inner child wounds. We need to come to our children with wholeness and abundance and give them what they need and not look for our children to give us what our inner children need, right? Our inner child or children are hungry and we're looking for our children to fill that need. And this is the most common problem in parenting. But here's where you make a shift. And instead of coming to your child filled with your need, you come to your child to fill their need. And that's the shift you need to make. So the next time you're triggered, you go, oh, this is my inner child talking. My real child doesn't mean to trigger me. So how can I step into my role as mother and give her what she needs? It's this constant reminder to not fall into these comparison traps, because the person who falls into the comparison trap is the little inner child within us. The full adult, the grown-up whole self doesn't fall into the comparison trap because they are secure, you see?
Yes. Yes. And that all makes so much sense. And I'm glad we're talking about it because it's really eye-opening, and it we can all get in our heads and it can really just ruin us. And just so I'm happy that we're able to talk about this, and it's really beneficial.
Yes, your child is telling you, hey, mommy, don't take it personally. Heal yourself. I'm not making it about you. It's about me. And we're just missing the message. And we keep being hurt and keep perpetuating the cycle over and over again.
Right. And I think now is where we can break the generational curses, right?
Yeah, that's so powerful. Your abandonment is showing up in the moment, and without you realizing, you're repeating the pattern of abandoning your daughter when she most needs you. So if you can remember this, then you get to break the pattern.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I hope that's a good reminder for you in the moment. Next time your daughter is, making you feel like you're lesser than, remember, it's not my inner child right now that needs to be in the center. It's how I can take care of my real child that needs to be my focus.
Wow. Yeah, I love the way you put that. Just being there for her and loving her in ways. Because, kids, they'll ask for attention or, your time, but not indirectly, so just showing up and being present and in the moment.
I think you had an aha that you can now use in your parenting. I think something really shifted for you and you began to see that your child is not attacking you. It's your own past trauma that's showing up. That is a huge insight that you can use in your parenting. So I wish you well and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Shefali.
Bye, sweetie. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
I'd like to now end this episode with a reminder about what triggers really are. So many people think that the trigger is on the outside. And I always say, and as I've explained in my book, The Parenting Map, the trigger is never really on the outside. Sure, it's a thing that sets us off. It's something someone says or the way our children behave. But the real reason that thing on the outside turns into a trigger is because it inflames an old wound inside us. So as I write in my book, what turns something on the outside into a triggering event, an emotional trigger, isn't that thing on the outside at all. It is how it is interpreted and metabolized internally. It is this internal interpretation and metabolism that is the key, the linchpin to determining whether something on the outside stays neutral or turns into an emotional trigger. So remember that as you go forth this week about all the things that trigger you. Pause, turn inward, and ask yourself, why is this external event or person or circumstance on the outside of me creating such an internal tsunami? It's probably because it's triggering an old wound. And also, once you realize how the inside is affecting your external world, you will less fall into those comparison traps. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.